To start with our welcome remark, we would have to invite our very own Olumide Olayinka, who is a partner and head of Advisory West Africa, for the welcome remark. Please put your hands together as we welcome Olumide.
Thank you very much, Amber. And, I think for me, it's good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure, to welcome you to this summit. We've done a number of summits, and we've themed this year's summit as Core Banking Modernization Summit. I think for us, it's a very strategic one for us and for all of us, even in this room, to be engaged this morning. I think it's a core theme for a number of us because we see modernization as it's not a nice to have. It's something that you require, to even gain any competitive advantage in the market. And we've seen a number of developments in our sub-region in that regard. So it's a pleasure to welcome all of you, distinguished guests, friends, leaders, executives of banks, partners, and even my colleagues. So I will just run through this very quickly so I don't delay the very exciting session. I think on behalf of KPMG, I think it's, once again, my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you. Banking as we know it is being redefined. It's not like it's being redefined, driven by shifts in customer expectations. And we've seen that. Technology is also advancing. And also, there are regulatory mandates that are also, being thrown at us. And then the recent one is the operationalization of open banking. So from a regulatory perspective, which is why, to be ready for that, you need to modernize. If you look at open banking, it's massive. And even the REMs, we don't even know the REMs yet. We only know the REMs now. But when we'll get into open banking, the REMs are wide. So as a West Africa banking sector, rapidly, shifts towards a very digital, agile, and inclusive future. The imperatives to overhaul your core platforms cannot be overemphasized. Today's session, I think, will unveil, valuable insights into how institutions can successfully, navigate the complexities. It's quite complex for core banking organization. And you have to also future-proof whatever you are modernizing, because you are not just modernizing to stop at modernization. It has to tie to what you want to try and do. And, and a lot of banks are already, aligning themselves for that competitive advantage. So we will hear, from leaders in this room as they share real-life examples and experiences on delivering, large-scale transformations, which is already occurring, while addressing, what we call the critical challenges of core banking modernization. I think for us, core banking is not just about keeping up with, and I've said it, about changing technology landscape. It's a very strategic thing you do. It is clearly about, gaining competitive advantage. You don't do core banking just because your system is broken or is not available and all that. You need to get competitive edge with operational resilience, which is why it's very important. A lot of banks, just visiting banks, business resilience, which operational resilience is very key to. Security too is very important. Cyber security is very important. So, and also agility. I kind of emphasize that. And also it enables us to have what we call smarter customer engagement, which is also very key. So we recognize that core banking transformation is a complex endeavor. Sometimes I can't say that more than I can even say it. I can't overemphasize it. That it's complex. And that's why this summit is to bring together a mix of perspective, spanning diverse leaders to discuss it. Today, we will explore the case for core banking modernization, operational and even stakeholders' impact of change. You keep wondering why I'm emphasizing modernization, because we've seen banks that should have even modernized, a decade ago, and the imperative for it is not very clear. So hopefully this summit will clarify the imperative for that modernization. And also, there are regulatory stuff that is being implied. And open banking is also something that is going to revolutionize the space that we are in. So let me just conclude so that I don't hog the mic. So as we begin today, I encourage you to challenge ideas, ask bold questions, and use today as an opportunity to also connect with peers who are also in this journey, because knowledge sharing is also very important. Whether you are about to start a transformation or you are seeking to optimize a newly developed banking software, the future of banking is not something we are waiting for. It is something we should build together. So once again, I thank you for joining us, and we look forward to a very rich dialogue, meaningful collaboration, and actionable insights as we chart the path towards resilient, future-ready banking. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the summit.
It is clear that core banking is not just about upgrading your technology, but it's also about identifying opportunities and strategies for value proposition. With that strong foundation laid, let's move on to our next session for today. So our next presentation is titled Core Banking Modernization as a Foundation for Nigeria's Open Banking Future. The speaker will be sharing critical perspective on the strategic roles of core banking systems in enabling open banking in Nigeria. With that said, please let's welcome on stage the MD and CEO of Stanbic IBTC, Mr. Wole Adeniyi. A brief profile on Mr. Wole. Mr. Wole is the Chief Executive Officer of Stanbic IBTC Bank Limited. He oversees the strategic direction of the bank across key areas of technology and digital transformation. He is the current chairman of AI Nigeria and serves on the board of Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, and Nigerian South Africa Chamber of Commerce. With nearly 3 decades of banking experience, he has championed major initiatives across system transformation, digital innovation, and operational efficiency, positioning Stanbic IBTC for scalable growth and alignment with Nigerians' open banking ambitions. Thank you so much, Mr. Wole, for being here.
Good morning, everyone, and it's good to see people that have been on this journey of core banking over the years with. So good morning, and thanks to KPMG for inviting me, and I'm highly honored with the opportunity to. Oh, sorry, there's this one here. Sorry. I'm highly honored with the opportunity to share my perspective on core banking transformation as a foundation for Nigerian open banking future. Let me see how this works. Okay. I can bring it down. Oh, disappeared. Okay, sorry. Can go back. Just want to go back to my first page. Thank you so much. So I have this presentation. I can give it out after you can go through. But let me start on a very practical note, because something, I think when Ladi was making his presentation, I thought about, when you have gone through core banking transformation, you just want to do it in your lifetime. But just imagine how many times I've gone through it. So in fact, it has defined my life. So and I think, so I'm very, very competent. You say somebody is competent to say about something. I'm very, very competent to speak about it because of what I've done I have 32, 33 years career in banking, and I've been at the cutting edge of core banking, upgrade, transformation, implementation throughout, on even before until I became the CE for the bank. Why is KPMG doing this point in time? I think there's no better time to do it than now. I'm telling you. So if the regulators are here, what you should do at the end of this summit is the outcome of this summit. I think you need to share it, especially with the central bank. They are here, fantastic. This is something that should be paid for by the industry that the KPMG is actually doing. Why? 60% of the industry has to modernize in the next 1 or 2 years. It's imperative. Why do I say that? When you wake up every morning in Nigeria, 60% of customers operate from the same core banking platform, because there's a dominant core banking platform that is 60% of that 60% market share. Only one bank just recently implemented the latest version. The rest of the bank have the old version of those system. And that system is going to go away. It's not going to be supported. Why is it, from a regulatory perspective, why is it very important? It's important from the regulatory perspective, and that's why you see the regulation from the central bank. Because if 60% of the market is going to modernize at the same time, that creates a massive systemic risk. So hence, before, when you want to go live on a core banking application, you just notify the regulator. But now they say you seek approval. So it can be an orderly transition and then reduce systemic risk. 4 key perspectives of, why this bank has to do it. One, I think, is why we are here. How do we modernize? How do we embrace open banking without modernizing the current legacy system that you have that cannot support some of those things? One of the things you'll find about any of those ones is that the amount of customization that has been done cannot make it interoperable with open banking. So that's number one. Number two, the rate of change. Why is the technology provider asking for a new platform? Why? Because the rate of change of the technology stack that supports the platform has changed significantly. So virtually everybody has to, because those things are not supported. The original manufacturers are not supporting those things. And so because of that, you cannot continue to build on them. In fact, unless you are going to have archaic people who are going to be doing work for you, for which nobody wants to support again, and people have new knowledge and technology that can drive greater customer experience. Number 3, agility. Agility is so important. I think Ladi mentioned it. Some of these things virtually that in my presentation, Ladi has mentioned, but I'll still go through my presentation in a moment. Agility. And when I was thinking about it this morning, and I've said this in open forum before, First Bank, somebody from First Bank here? Yeah, thank you. First Bank took 100 and something years to get to 50 million customers. I don't know the customer base or any access bank. Just look at the big 5. It took OPay how many years to get 50 million customers? It took PalmPay. PalmPay will have about 40 million customers. What made them to achieve that is agility. They can plug and play and everything. So the platform that we've built cannot even help us give customer experience and also do things at scale. If you look at it again, the biggest thing that is happening, which open banking also is hyper-personalization. Massive opportunity. In fact, what hyper-personalization means that myself, Wole Adeni, I have my own core banking application that I can talk to. And talk to me at the way and manner I want to talk to it. Then when you now go to artificial intelligence and you talk of agentic AI, then you change everything. In fact, because then it's not human beings that is transacting, it's your agent that will transact for you. All I need to do is use a voice command. I say I want to pay money from First Bank to FCMB, 50,000 naira for Wole Adeniyi. Just my voice command, an agent will take it. If you don't modernize your core banking system, in 10 years, it will disappear. Because if you cannot you cannot use an agent to do your core banking transaction, then you won't be relevant in the future. There's a book by that is going to be written by a guy called Brett King. He wrote about banking 1.0 to 4.0. He's going to do one now that's going to be like banking 10.0. And we're going to say that the next level is agentic AI, where it's just an agent that does everything. They have to come to your system. So your system must be such that can talk to an agent. Why is KPMG doing this thing now? Because, and I'm not selling KPMG, truly. Ladi said it, that they've done this. You must have the scars of core banking if you have gone through it before to know what is. My brother Inka is a. You must. If you don't have a scar, you've not done it. But why like I told you, I started in Citibank 30-something years ago. One of the reasons why I left Citibank was the fact that I did one core banking, two core banking. I said the third one must not meet me here. I left there. Then I work in a small bank that transmitted to be Sterling Bank. Then I came to Stanbic Bank, the old Stanbic Bank. Then we merged with IBTC Chartered. Luckily, I was the head of Ops and Technology in the old Stanbic Bank. So we're going to migrate. So we had, on the IBTC Chartered, we had Equinox. On Stanbic here, we had Bankmaster. Given my experience from where I was coming, and luckily we were a merchant bank, very small, I said, look, we are not integrating anything. We did reconciliation. We were on Bankmaster in the old Stanbic, but we did reconciliation to the last element. I said, just capture. So let's just move quietly to Equinox. Don't integrate anything so that some people will not, because doing data migration will kill you. I said, just capture. So we had only less than 100 item open reconciliation. So we just ultimately manually capture to the Equinox. And then we sunset Bankmaster. Then we now said, okay, Equinox was end of life. We need to move to Finacle. That was my baptism of fire. Another one. Then we did one, and I was the program manager. We didn't just do it in Nigeria, we did it across Africa. But where KPMG came in was the last one I did. And I'll say some of the progress I've made. You know, when you do it very well, you also get the approval, the pat on the back. And I think it helped me. It prompted me up, and KPMG did very well. And that was the best core bank implementation we had. When we brought KPMG in, it was definitely under the leadership of Inka, but was Boye. Under the leadership of Lumide, but Boye was our man that worked with us. And in fact, it was Boye get his partnership in KPMG because of that. Because he did it very well. We did it. It was the best ever that we did. That was the first time I did a core bank implementation that we went live, 0 issues. Everything considered was the best we've ever done. And that was my last one. I will never say, in my role, I will be the one that will be. I'll be the one that will be doing the. So KPMG, I can say, and even Boye did it very well, that he had to go and set up his own partnership to run his own, because he now knows what it takes to actually deliver a core banking program. In the 9 minutes that I have left, let me just, in fact, if the industry wants to do it, after this summit, based on what they put together, KPMG should actually be paid for it, because what the outcome of this will actually help in terms of the whole industry in embracing the modernization and what we're going to do with open banking. So there's a strategic imperative. Let me go back. Sorry. Yeah. So the strategic imperative, I think we've spoken about this in terms of what the core banking modernization is going to achieve. Open banking is imperative. There's nothing. There's a go live date, and one of the partners I can say publicly is Skempebi that we are using to help us deliver this. And there's a lot that is happening with data. Data is the new oil. There's a lot that's happening, and there's a data compliance, there's a data governance. The biggest fines that we've seen in recent times is breach of data. So you have to modernize so much that you don't flout regulatory compliance when it comes to data. You're not even dealing with your regulator, you are dealing with FCCP, you are dealing with Nigerian Data Protection Company, NITIDA. So it's very important that you do whatever you need to do to modernize the core banking. What are the issues with the legacy core banking? Number one is you can't integrate with other systems again. Most of them, we have over customization, lack of agility, I've mentioned it. And today, why the fintechs are taking the launch of bank today, and we are partners, I have one, we are partners, but it's because there's no agility. I've been at the fintechs are operating at the core edge of new technology. And they have and that's why they have the advantage, and that's why the customer experience is different. Today, if you look at what the fintechs are doing on their platform, it's unbelievable. But the biggest thing you see, I've been to one of them and I look at their back office, their technology back office. They are making change at the speed of light. And it's because of agility and it's cloud native, cloud capability, that they are doing. When you talk of using artificial intelligence, they are going to get there first because of those abilities that they have. When we dealt with Salesforce, they told us that, look, their platform is such that they do 1,000 changes in a day. Which bank can do 1,000 changes in a day and the whole infrastructure will not collapse? So imperative that we have to modernize our systems. When we look at what are the things that will enable open banking, the first thing is it must be API first and event-driven architecture. If you don't have that capability, you can't do open. So your core banking has to be such that it's API first and event-driven architecture. 2, you have to be cloud native. On-premise will not solve anything again. It's more expensive. And I can be bold to say that we are when you even talk of on-premise, we are one of the first bank. One of my first job is that I don't want to manage anything. Just outsource everything. Cheaper and more reliable. Composable and interoperable services, you need that capability for you to be able to deliver on open banking. And I've spoken about data governance before. What will enabling this do for us, for Nigerian banks? You'll be able to comply clearly with everything from data, with the regulator, with even Basel III and all the other things that are coming right along the line. You'll be able to comply by design. Then open API modernization, the ability to be agile in your product launch, and definitely one of the things done to us is financial inclusion. What are the roadmap to? I think one of the roadmap to transformation option is what we're having today. By being able to do a deep dive and assess what's happening in the industry, what are the options, what opportunity, the presentation that Ladi made now is part of it. This is the starting point of some of the things that we need to do from an industry perspective. You need a trusted partner to do your assessment. When you talk about the decision to choose core banking platform is a big decision. You need the best assessment to be done in terms of what you are going to do. What capabilities that you need to do, and the approach that you need to take to that also is very important. I've spoken a lot about this, but I want to focus on here. And then I'll have another slide and I'll close. The biggest challenge is basically the risk that goes with implementations. This is if you have ever done a core banking, and the reason why the central bank came up with that thing is that there were many, and it was only 1 or 2 banks that were actually changing their core banking. But even people that were just doing minor upgrades, there was disruption in the industry. And that's why the central bank came up with the fact that, before you do any core banking upgrade or anything, you must get a regulatory approval. Because at the simultaneous impact, just like I mentioned, that 60% are supposed to, in the next 2 years are supposed to, because that's the pervasive core banking solution in the market. And all of them are legacy because the provider has said they are not supporting that platform again, they have to move. If you are going to remain on that thing, then you are going to be on your own. Or it's going to be more expensive for you to maintain. Then it's not even futuristic for you. You are not future-proof because you cannot do every other thing that you are going to do. And that's why one of the banks, because they've been on a very legacy application for long that is not supported. In fact, from one remote location. But eventually they have to bite the bullet and do it. But where you have to really make the difference is dealing with implement. And it's possible, and I gave you my experience. The last one I did, like I told you, we did it that the night before we went live, right? A question was asked, what are the issues? Whether from a cost, and the art of any core banking transformation or modernization, open bank is about the customer. The customer is at the heart of everything being said and done is about the customer to give them the best experience. I spoke about personalization. Eventually, what you want to personalization means every customer has their own bank. They have their own core banking application. That's what personalization is supposed to do for you. But from an implementation risk perspective, you must understand what it's going to do to your disruption. Where you have seen the challenge most is actually on data integrity. Data migration is a killer on its own. But I can tell the last one we did with KPMG, we had 100% success in doing when we had our migration. There are talent gaps with JACPA, but with the capability you have in the industry, I think you can make a lot of difference. There are different mitigation strategies, like I've said, and with the right partnership, it can be done. Here, you can look at different implementation strategies that you can. You can still do a big bang. Most of the things I've done is big bang, truly, where we've done everything at once. You change everything at once. But when you do that, you have the right partner, you go through the right process, through diligent process, and you can achieve it. But here, in the next slide, I think what I've just done is highlight some of those strategies that you can embrace. But with the right partnership, even if you do big bang, you can deliver it. In closing, I will say, you need to take action now to transform your bank. Every individual bank, we are in that category because we've been given the notice that application is not supported into the future. Then we have to upgrade it. So core banking transformation is essential not only for meeting open banking prerequisites, but also the cornerstone for the future. Bank modernizing their core system today will seize the open banking opportunity, while those who hesitate risk obsolescence in an interconnected financial landscape. Thank you.
All right. The next talk will be taken by Ladi Asune. He will still talk about the imperative for core banking modernization. He will be talking about the drivers, the challenges, the opportunities that comes with core banking modernization. But before I bring Ladi up, a short profile of Ladi, so we know who is talking to us. Ladi is the partner and head of tech platform unit within advisory service practice of KPMG West Africa, where he leads enterprise technology initiatives with a focus on core banking platforms and digital transformation. He is a recognized digital thought leader and a member of the firm's payment advisory group. With over 20 years of experience, he has led projects across the financial services sector, covering core banking modernization, payment service systems, enterprise system implementation, data governance and strategy, financial service development, digital strategy and transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ladi Asune for his presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, and once again, thank you everyone for making the time to attend this summit. We really appreciate your presence. And we also appreciate the overwhelming interest in having this conversation. Just as Olumide has said, for us, we thought it was a timely conversation to be having, given that a lot of banks are probably just recently done their modernization. Some are perhaps in the middle of it, and that's really the conversation we want to have. And some are, of course, planning for it. Today, I'm going to be setting the context really around, what is this all about? Why modernize? When we talk modernization, for the average person in the room, what does it mean? What exactly are the benefits that we stand to gain from modernizing? What are the drivers for modernization of our core banking system? We're not doing it for the sake of it. We're not doing it because it's a trend. We should actually have clarity in terms of why we want to modernize. And there are several factors that are driving that, which we'll review together. We are also going to be looking at the challenges, just as Olumide has said. While the promise of modernization, is there, it's something to be appreciated, it's something to be desired, but the journey is not an easy one. Traditionally, people have compared core banking change to an open heart surgery, right? Or even trying to change the engines of a plane mid-flight. And that's what makes it daunting. That's why every time people talk about core banking, in fact, in KPMG, we used to make a joke that core banking project is something you should only aspire to do once in your career. But then over time, I've done my first, second, third, fourth, and I dare say that, it's a challenge that is indeed, surmountable. And of course, we'll then be concluding on then what then does it mean for us as leaders in banking. So I'll just like to briefly start, first of all, looking at the journey so far. Where are we coming from? And I believe that in this room, we have enough experience that can relate with some of the things about how the core banking system has evolved, right? There may be some people that maybe joined us at the digital points, and don't really know where we're coming from. But just to say that over the years, for a few decades, we've moved from branch-based banking, where the architecture was so simple, things were decentralized, the eras of branch servers, because everything was literally happening within the branch. There were no channels to contend with. There were no POSs. There were no ATMs. There was no mobile banking. It was basically cash, teller, passbook, make your withdrawal, and it was such a glorious era for banking, but it was a big problem for customers, right? And we've since evolved. As you look at the screen, we've evolved more towards, the era of, banks supporting multitude of channels, omni-channel support, integrating. We are now at the point in the journey where we are integrating with third parties. So the number of requests hitting the core banking system have moved from just the people that walk into our branches, which give or take, you'd say even for the biggest branches, maybe you have about 1,000 or 2,000 people coming per day, to people hitting digital transactions from your channels, your POSs, your ATMs, hitting your core banking system almost on a per second basis. So indeed, that architecture to support that level of digitization has to be robust, it has to be scalable, it has to be resilient, it has to be able to handle this volume of transactions. And as we then talk about modernization, which is the era that we are in now, we are then getting to the point where, with the likes of the fintech partnership, the fintech collaborations we are seeing, the surge we are seeing in the whole agency banking, there is even greater need for banks to support a broader base of collaborators, a broader base of ecosystem partners. And this continues to ask critical questions around what exactly is the base that is supporting all of this growth. And that's really what the conversation is, moving to cloud-native modular systems that are able to scale. I'll go a bit further into the comparison of where we are coming from versus where we are going. And pardon to people, I know that for those of us that have modernized, you would not associate as much with the legacy, but I still think that it's important for all of us to know, because I don't think it's 100% of the journey that has been covered yet. So what exactly is the legacy? Legacy systems are typically defined by very rigid architecture, monolithic architecture, where it is difficult. You don't change components, you have to change the whole, right? You can't really make any changes without bringing the entire system down. Things are tightly integrated, and making a change can be so daunting. It's difficult to scale, difficult to integrate, right? All these discussions we're having about integrating with FinTech A, FinTech B, supporting open banking is not a conversation that is easy to have when you're operating on the legacy. Then you also have the challenges of batch processing. Today, our leaders, executives, CEOs, you want real-time data, you want real-time insight. You don't want to have crossed certain thresholds, regulatory threshold, before you get to the end of day report that then says that, look, we've already gone over our single obligor limit, we've already gone over certain exposures, and then we're trying to manage things. They were also product-centric, not really designed for the customer per se. And then we also had a high dependency on vendors for customization. We've all been there, where you want to make a little change, a request has to go somewhere in India, they have to analyze it, come back. And, the question that executives keep asking, that why must every little thing require so much effort? So the change was just so slow. It wasn't as agile. And then we're moving to that modern core environment where it's more modular. The system is more composable. You have bits and pieces of the architecture that you can individually separate and scale. So for instance, if you're in this modern era, if you're partnering, say you're doing a fintech collaboration where the bank is providing the engine for KYC verification, for instance, that is a component of the architecture that needs to scale. So rather than scaling the entire infrastructure, what the modular modern system then does is that it allows you to scale that specific component where you are getting increased traffic. So that modular architecture is giving a bit more agility to businesses. Similarly, on that API integration layer to enable open banking, there's also a lot of skill that has been built into that, because that's really the future. We are looking at the future just as at the time when we crossed from the traditional branch banking to the digital, where significant traffic shifted from the branch-related transactions to having more than 80-90% of our transaction volumes coming from digital. With open banking, we also expect to see a surge where a significant percentage of the traffic you will experience may actually be coming from your third-party collaborators. So having that layer that can scale and enable that collaboration becomes critical, and that's part of what the modern core delivers. Customer centricity, that's another thing. So we are moving to the point where the core banking should be able to present, that view of your customer across different products, rather than taking a product-based view of the bank. And of course, when it comes to customization, we are now talking about parameter-driven configuration. So people within the bank, product managers, should be able to configure their products. They should be able to customize for different segments without having to call IT, without having to call the vendor. So that's really the era that the modern core banking is really trying to achieve. And all of this culminates in what we're calling that agility for the business. Moving on to what the drivers are for modernization, and we've touched on some of it. So first point there is the evolving customer. We've talked about the customer of today being largely digital. And a shift happened in Nigeria in the last 2 years, right? Customers that we thought would not embrace digital for whatever reason, either because of the segment of the market they operate in, or because of the fact that they are not as literate as the people that we traditionally bank with. We've seen them come into the market. Maybe thanks to the cashless policy that we experienced, maybe due to the surge of agency banking. But the truth of the matter is that today, there's almost no artisan, there's almost no vendor, however low they are in the segment, that isn't doing some form of banking or the other. It may not be the sophisticated banking we all talk about, but generally, the coverage of banking has widened, and we expect it to continue to widen over the years. The ecosystem is also another factor that is driving this change. We are seeing an increased breadth of collaboration within the ecosystem. A lot of fintechs approaching banks. And of course, the open banking operationalization with the CBN is currently driving is also expected to drive modernization. Emerging competition. As we said, we are not changing technology for the sake of it. We are changing it because we want to be more nimble businesses. We want to be more agile. We want to be able to operate in a cost-effective manner. And that also ties very closely to the operational efficiency. How do we operate a system that supports our aspiration of lowering our cost to serve? And last but not the least, there is regulatory compliance. Like I said earlier, we are trying to modernize in certain cases to also manage those exposures, those potential regulatory infractions that comes from not really having real-time data as leaders of banks. So we can't deliver the future of banking on infrastructure built for the past. And that's really the key message here on why we need to modernize. But as with every good thing, right, the promise of agility, the promise of scale, it doesn't come without its challenges. And we've been there. We've worked with a number of people in this room on their transition journeys. Changing systems can be a daunting endeavor for most organizations. And there are several factors that drive this complexity. One is even the decision around, who are we really going with on this journey? What system are we working with? Are we building? Are we buying? Are we partnering? There are all sorts of permutations that have been driven by different factors, including the FX cost of even managing a lot of all these platforms. So all of these are considerations, that come into getting on that journey. Similarly, when we then get into the migration strategy, it's always a dilemma. I've been in conversations where people have said, let's go big bang. Let's just, cut it, transition. And we've all seen that. And I call it a complex decision. Similarly, I've also seen people contend with, the complexity of a phased implementation, right? Where we say, let's run two parallel systems. As sweet as that may sound, as delightful as it may sound that we can run two parallel systems, the architecture, the consideration, the resourcing required to run two systems in parallel is also not an easy one. So whether we like it or not, these are conversations that are strategic in nature that we as leaders need to really sit and not make it an IT conversation. It's a business conversation on how we want to approach this. The technical implementation realities is also something that we can't overemphasize. What sort of ecosystem of applications are we really managing? Sometimes you get into these type of conversations and you realize that there's a suite of over 60 applications, some of which are even redundant, some of which will be overtaken by capabilities that we're implementing in the new system. So this also comes to bear, data migration. I'm glad that we have a session later today that will be looking at the challenges of data migration, but this is also another area because our new systems really thrive on a lot of the promises of the new banking system thrives on having good quality data. And it's usually when we do this migration that you realize that the legacy system did not have such tight controls around how data is collected, how data is managed, or even the breadth of data we collect from our customers. And last but not the least, there's the human element. Human element in this case is not just the people within. We have our operation staff to consider. We have our frontline people, the people that need to manage the customers during the peak of this change. We also have, the technology team that needs to be skilled for the transition. We also have to deal with our customers, the people that will be mostly be impacted if anything goes wrong, whether it's in the data migration bit, whether it's in that cutover, the customers need to be managed. And we are also going to be looking at that a bit. In closing, I just want to say something, that the core banking modernization is not just an initiative. It's not just a technology initiative. It is something that would really enable the future that we seek as banks. That future of growth, the future of scale, this future around scalability. And that's really the promise around your modernization. Even though the challenges may seem daunting, what we want to assure you for our partners here is that KPMG, we've gone through this several times with our clients, and we come with a lot of rich experience, a lot of lessons learned that we believe, we can partner with you. And then in closing, I would also say that the way the banking model is evolving is not just the one where we are deepening our current capabilities, but it's one where not only do we have to go deeper in offering better services to the customer segment we serve, but it's also to consider that horizontal growth that will be occasioned by open banking that we're going to be seeing over the next few years. And that scale is massive. We believe that the leaders will be those that modernize with clarity, that modernize with courage, as well as working with the right support. Thank you.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on stage Mr. Ayodele Otiiwa.
Good morning once again, distinguished colleagues, top executives of banks, friends, and the technology experts that are with us this morning. I'm sure you will agree with me that the discussions we have been having since morning are very insightful. They are equally very powerful because when Wale was speaking, he said 60% of the industry is still under legacy system. A legacy system that is not going to be supported going forward. So you ask yourself, what will happen? So it means that maybe, I don't think the whole 40% are entirely there yet. But it means there's a lot of work that we need to do. And one theme that cut across all the conversation is the support they have gotten from KPMG. KPMG has been a pillar of support in this journey of transforming the banking system. So for us at KPMG, the question is that do we keep this knowledge to ourselves? How do we help the remaining 60% out there to make it easier? How do we spark conversations in the boardrooms, at your BU meetings, in the ESCO meetings, about the need, the urgency for us to start having a conversation on modernizing our banking systems? So leveraging off our experience, we have now put together this thought leadership document. And what is this document supposed to do? It's supposed to share with all of us the challenges. How do you develop the strategy? What are the risks? What are the challenges? And after all that we have done, do we have a framework that we think will make this easier for you? So it becomes a manual. It's actually a manual that we would like every bank to have. When you go through the manual, particularly in section 4 of the thought leadership, you see where we have developed a 6-pillar framework that guides the way you go about the implementation of core banking system. I think people have said, when you are implementing core banking system, it's like what? An open heart surgery. Or when you are trying to change the engine of a plane, where? Midair. That can be daunting, that can be challenging. It can give you the creeps that you say, maybe I should not do this thing. No. But we are telling you, you need to do it. The banking sector is telling you, you need to do it. Open banking is even telling you that if you are going to survive in this era of open banking, you need to do it. Then we are here to ease your pain. We can't take it away completely, but we can make it better. So our goal is to make your journey towards modernizing your banking sector much easier, logical, within a framework that has been tested, tried, and found to be successful, as you heard from the testimonies this morning, from not 1, not 2, not 3. So you don't have to say, I should only do this once in a lifetime. With KPMG here, well, you can do it whenever you want to do it. You have KPMG to support you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call out a few people to join me as we unveil this thought leadership. So I hope we actually wanted more people. We had to move this forward because quite a number of the people who spoke that I would have loved to be part of this unveiling are gone. So I had to tell them that, look, let's do this thing before the rest will leave. So, Gbolahan, please join us on the stage. Abraham Azegbe, please join us on the stage. Michelle Nwogu, please join us. Okechukwu Nwonke, thank you very much. Bartholomew Okonkwo, thank you. And from KPMG side, Olumide Olayinka, Ngozi Shidozie, and of course, the man who brought all of us here, Ladi Asuni. So, well, I think I should stay in the middle. So how do we do? No. I think just because some people should join me while we lift up this. I think this is a cover. Yes, we need a lady. Please, man, join us. Yes. Okay, so at the count of three, you will help me unveil this thought leadership. Fantastic thought leadership work. So 1, 2, 3. Wow. So we would like this thought leadership to promote insightful discussions within your teams, within the banks, within the groups. Just read it and let it stimulate your appetite for discussion. To look at your system, to look at everything about the enterprise, about the bank, and say to yourself, are you ready? Most often, since we know that 60% is not ready, you will not be ready. So, KPMG is here. The journey of modernizing the core banking system, a successful statement in Nigeria. Thank you very much. So we can now take the picture, please. You know I was out of the picture before.